It's time for your daily LSU baseball update with Musso at the box. Now, Matt Musso.
And welcome into another edition of Musso at the Box. Ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, we are 10 days away from the Tigers opening up the 2024 season. They will face VMI on February the 16th, Friday, February the 16th for a 2 p.m. first pitch. 10 days, a week from Friday, LSU is playing some baseball. Fired up to be with y'all here today. We have talked an awful lot about the production that LSU has to replace from last year's national championship team. And in doing so, we have thrown out a lot of names and a lot of roles that they might fill and all those types of things. So what I wanted to do today is take a closer look at some of those new faces. And I wanted to start with the transfer portal. Because like it or not, no matter how you feel, right, wrong, and different to the portal, it is a major part of college sports these days. And quite honestly, the LSU baseball program has benefited immensely from the transfer portal in Jay Johnson's 2 previous years here in Baton Rouge. Can we all agree on that? Like that's a thing that has happened. They have benefited immensely. Jacob Berry was a big part of the 2022 team. Yeah, Eric Razelman, Paul Gervais, Riley Cooper, all big parts of that team that got you to 40, helped get you to 40 wins in a regional final against Southern Miss last year. Paul Skenes, pretty big impact on that team, right? Yeah, that guy didn't stink. Tommy White, pretty big impact on last year's team. Thatcher Hurd started and got the win in the national championship game for you. So it's been a major part of what LSU has built under Jay Johnson, the transfer portal has. So, and it will be again this year. I really wanted to take a look at those guys. So that's what we're going to do here on today's Musso at the Box. We're going to go through them one by one, give you some more background on them, and talk a little bit about where and how they might be used this year at LSU. Before we do that, though, I'll remind you, of course, subscribe up to the YouTube channel. Go to YouTube, type in Musso at the Box. It's right there. Subscribe, hit the bell. You'll be notified anytime videos posted. We're closing in on 300 subscribers right now, which is great. It hadn't even been live for a week, that channel, but let's keep it going higher, man. Like, subscribe, share it out, tell your friends to go subscribe up. It's greatly appreciated. And then, of course, the audio version is still in the same spot it's always been, right? Anywhere you get your podcast, Apple, Spotify, Google, literally anywhere you get your podcast, I'm there. Subscribe up as well there. Follow me on Twitter at Musso Matthew. All of that greatly appreciated. Do want to throw this out there too at the beginning of the show for tomorrow's episode. If you're new here, this is the 5th year we've been doing the show. If you're new, each preseason we do a Q&A, listener question type deal. I sent out the tweet Monday evening for it. Y'all have dropped it. Plenty of questions under there. If you want to drop some in the comments of this video, do that as well. It's greatly appreciated. So that's what we'll do on tomorrow's show. But today, we're going to talk about the transfers. So, LSU, 7 transfers into the program after, in this cycle, I should say. D1 Baseball ranks at the number 2 transfer class in the country. Of those 7, only 2 of them are position players. And that's a little different when you look at kind of years past. And again, it makes sense why. LSU had to replace an awful lot on the mound. You needed to, Paul Skenes is gone. Ty Floyd is gone. Riley, we can go down the list. And you needed to do it at multiple levels on the pitching staff as well. So they went really heavy there. That tells you a couple things, though, I think that should be encouraging, especially about the lineup. That tells you that they're pretty happy with the guys that they have. Even though we maybe haven't seen a lot of Paxton Kling or Jared Jones or Brady Neal or guys like that, they feel comfortable having them come in and step in without having to go grab somebody immediately out of the portal, or even some of the freshmen that could contribute. They feel comfortable enough that, okay, this guy can start as a freshman without having to go grab somebody out of the portal. But there were 2 pretty big positions that they had to replace, so we're going to go and start there. I know pitching is going to command a lot of this conversation, and I get it, but because there's only 2 position players, I wanted to start there and kind of work our way from there. Dylan Cruz, obviously the biggest, replacement needed for, right? That's the biggest hole, quote unquote, that you needed. Arguably the greatest player in the program's history, Golden Spikes winner, 2-time SEC Player of the Year. Number 2 overall draft pick. Guy's gonna have his number on the facade one day. That was huge. The second biggest hole you needed to fill was shortstop, was replacing Jordan Thompson. And that's not even a question. It's a premium defensive position. Jordan was a very good player for you for 3 years. I'm not here to have that conversation anymore. We had it for 3 years. We had it ad nauseum for 3 years. Jordan Thompson did a lot of great things for LSU in his time here over 3 years and was a stalwart at that position. He stabilized that position when you needed it most because it had been a long time since LSU had stability at shortstop. And now you have to replace that. And it's huge because, like I said, premium defensive position, got to have a great glove there. You want to be strong up the middle. All those reasons that we know about the position of shortstop in baseball, you had to replace it. And Jay Johnson knew it so much that he did it while they were still playing in the 2023 season. Okay? Enter Michael Braswell. Michael Braswell comes to you from South Carolina, played 2 seasons for the Gamecocks, 51 games in 2023 along with 37 starts. Voted freshman All-SEC in 2022. So it's a pretty impressive resume. I mentioned that they did it mid-season. Well, I almost, screw it. We'll say mid-season. It was towards the end, but mid-season, whatever. And Jay told the story about that at Media Day, and I kind of found it fascinating.
We had just beaten Kentucky in the Super Regional, and if you remember, game 2, that was a game like Jordan made like 3 ridiculous plays. Like ridiculous, like Major League Baseball caliber plays. And I remember being happy we're going to Omaha, but the way my brain works, like, man, it's going to be hard to replace, that caliber of defense. And so I was talking to Michael, who was excited to hear from us. He's like, yeah, I'll come down when you guys get back from Omaha. And I was like, no, why don't you come tomorrow? And so he flew in the next day, and we had a good couple days. And I think, the day before the first game in Omaha, he called and said he was going to come to LSU.
LSU had 1 day in between beating Kentucky and then leaving to go to Omaha, and Jay used it to replace his shortstop. That was the plan then for Michael Braswell to be your starting shortstop, and he will be. I can remember doing a show when he committed and, sprinkling him in there, giving a few brief thoughts on it. And the main concern everybody had then and probably still does to this point is him hitting the baseball. And I totally understand. The defense is incredible. He's great. He's going to be a plus glove for you at shortstop. I'm not worried about that in the least. The offense was it. So you go back, you look at his numbers from his freshman season. Again, freshman All-SEC, hit 284, and you say that's really, really solid numbers for a true freshman to put up in this league. You dig a little deeper, and you see a lot of that. A lot of that came in the pre-conference slate, and when it got to SEC, the numbers dipped. He struggled against that caliber of pitching like freshmen normally do in this league. There's nothing to be ashamed of that. You go and you look at, last year, and his at-bats went from 201 as a freshman to 153 last year. The average went from 284 as a freshman to 255 last year, and I can understand how that causes some concern. But I will say here again now what I said then, back in June when we first talked about Michael Braswell joining LSU and committing to LSU. He's coming to a place where there is elite coaching on the offensive side. Jay Johnson and Mark Wanaka can handle that easily. Alex Milazzo is a great example of this. All right. He's arguably the best example of this that I can use because it hits close to home. We remember what Alex Milazzo was as a freshman and sophomore and whatnot, right? I mean, he struggled at the plate. Call it what it is. I think Alex Milazzo would tell you that. I mean, go back to his freshman season. No, he didn't have, numerous at bats that year. Only 43 ABs as a freshman, but hit 186 in that year. As a junior, that's where he had his most complete season. 126 at bats, hit 135. That's what entered Jay Johnson. And it's, he gets hurt, obviously, in that season, and it cuts it short, but he was already up to 227. He went from 135 to 227. And then, of course, last year, we know what it was, 289, using the backside of the field a lot more, was really able to contribute and came up with some pretty clutch hits for LSU over the course of the season. Excuse me. That's what you're hoping to see them do with Michael Braswell. And I think it's more than possible. The first scrimmage LSU had with this team in the fall, their first night, went out there. Michael Braswell was the first batter of the scrimmage. He singled up the middle. Later in that scrimmage, he hit a home run. I've been out there a little bit more than a handful of times now, and I've seen him fail to get a hit once. It certainly looks like he is making those strides to that. And Jay Johnson spoke about the development and what they've seen from Michael Braswell also at Media Day.
He's done a great job defensively. He's better than I thought, and I always had a high opinion of him. Like, we brought him here because I liked him. You know, whenever we were scouting another opponent that South Carolina was playing, myself and Coach Wanaka were like, man, this would be a great guy to have, just casually saying it. And then when we played them last year, both in Columbia and in the SEC tournament, like, I thought he took very mature at bats, and I just like how he plays. Like, he's just like, it's this guy that's going to make everybody else around him better. It's one of those deals that's mutually beneficial. Him and Coach Wanaka have put in a lot of work on the offensive side of it, and I think he led our team in hitting in the fall, and has a really good idea of what he's doing right now.
There's a couple things that are massive in that cut that Jay said. Number one, I wanted him here. He's here because I wanted him here. You can't overstate that. I mean, that's massive. That shows you a great deal of trust already that the head coach has in this player. And the part that I conveniently left out as well, yeah, he led the team in hitting in the fall. Against this LSU pitching staff that we all expect to be all world, he led your team in hitting. He's in a very good place right now, and I think most of you are going to be very pleased with Michael Braswell. That is it's a veteran player that has over 350 at-bats in college, and again will be a plus glove for you. Number 10, Michael Braswell. That's one of your new faces that you must watch, and he won't be hard to find out there because he's going to be your starting shortstop this season for LSU. Okay, the other position player they brought in is Mac Bingham out of Arizona. Yes, another Arizona Wildcat following Jay Johnson to LSU. It's worked out pretty darn well for the previous three. Jacob Berry, think we can all say that was a success. Yes. Riley Cooper, think we can all say that was a success. Yes. Bryce Collins certainly had his struggles last year, but his first year at LSU pitched to, like a 3 ERA. He was a key cog at a very important bullpen for LSU in 2022. So you look at Mac Bingham, you see another very veteran player. 4 seasons at Arizona, was all Pac-12 last season, set a career high in batting average. He just missed the career high in batting average by 1 point, but he hit 360. He set a career high in slugging percentage. He set a career high in home runs and in RBI, 10 homer, 51 RBI, and also a career high in at-bats with 253. Very experienced offensive player coming in here for LSU. And that's kind of the interesting thing, right? We touched on it a little bit off the top that you didn't... Mainly you focused on the pitching staff with the transfers this year. This is the first time that Jay Johnson's been at LSU that they haven't gone out and gotten that big bopper to fill a spot in the lineup, whether it had been Jacob Berry or then Tommy White. They didn't need to do that. Although I do think Mac Bingham brings a lot of positive things to LSU offensively and in the field. He's going to most likely play a corner outfield spot. At least that's how I feel it. He did play some center field at Arizona. But I think that highly of Paxton Kling that he just has to be your center fielder. We talked about the plays he made in the scrimmage on Sunday on yesterday's show. So I think you probably see Mac Bingham be the starting left fielder. But I'm not going to call him a 5-tool player, but you've seen the home runs start to come now with 10. He had one on Sunday in that scrimmage. The hit tool is obviously pretty good. He's hit 360 twice in college. But, look, again, he's not, going to be, he might not even be like Gavin Dugas level power where you're hitting 17 home runs or whatnot. But he could be a double-digit home run guy for you. That's a big positive. He's not this elite speedster, but he's not slow. He runs very well. So he does a lot of things well that you put them together and you get a really, really, really solid ball player in Mac Bingham. I've been very impressed with what I've seen from him so far in these scrimmages, both in the fall and in the preseason. So was selected in the 40th round out of high school by the Chicago Cubs. Yes, there was a time when the MLB draft had 40 rounds. How quickly we forget now that they're at 20, which is much more manageable and just makes a lot more sense. 40 was ridiculous. But obviously thought highly of there out of the high school ranks that somebody wanted to take a chance on. And then, like we said, played 4 years at Arizona and has earned all conference recognition. So another really solid player that you're bringing in who should be in your starting lineup opening day. And for the foreseeable future, I peg him probably in left field. Now, that's your position players. Let's move on to the pitchers because this is going to be very interesting. You got 5 of them coming in. And all of them will be looked upon to contribute, but in different ways. Let's start with the guys who are going to be in the rotation, or we presume are going to be in the rotation. Let's start with Luke Holman, because I think Luke Holman is the one who is absolutely like, okay, yeah, that guy's going to be in LSU's starting rotation. Everyone kind of knew that when LSU went and made that move, to get him. And when I address Holman, I'm going to throw out a caveat that I think is very important, and it's not to disparage him. I actually think it's a huge positive. But what you've heard so much of anytime anyone brings up Luke Holman is that he was Alabama's ace last year. Friday night starter and their ace. And, of course, yes, he was the guy that was scratched in the game against Paul Skenes and the betting and all that. But you hear he was their ace, Friday night guy. And while, yes, that is true, there is a big caveat to that. Luke Holman started the season for Alabama as their midweek starter. They had Ben Hess and Grayson Hitt at the front of that rotation to be their 1-2 punch. And if they would have stayed healthy, it would have been one of the better 1-2 punches in the conference. But they didn't stay healthy. They were both lost for the season. And Luke Holman was thrust into that role. And that is why I don't think it's a negative. But it's also why I want to throw that caveat out, because I think it shows a mentality and a mindset that kid has where that is not at all what he was expected to be for them this past year, I should say. But they needed him, and he stepped up. And he took his lumps early, but down the stretch, he really came into his own. You go back, you look at the numbers for him last year, 7-4, 3.67 ERA, 81 innings. The opponent's hitting 186. Those are good numbers. That's not Friday night SEC ace numbers. But that's also not what they thought he needed to be. But he showed them that he could. And that lands him at a spot like LSU. That's what's so massive. Fastball is going to be low to mid-90s. Has a couple more variations of a breaking ball. Really nice slider Luke Holman has. So just a really, really, really solid player. I'll tell you this right now. When he first really came onto my radar last year, obviously was preparing for the Alabama series, doing all our previews and whatnot, because he was supposed to be the Friday night starter. And then again, as we just mentioned, the whole betting thing and scratching him and blah, 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 and laugh at Brad Bohannon and all those things. It was the week after that, though, because he was back healthy and got to face Vanderbilt. And it was a Thursday night. And Vanderbilt, who was a top 8 national seed last year, he carved him up. 7 innings, 2 runs, 7 strikeouts, and only 1 walk. He only needed 98 pitches to get through those 7 innings. He was awesome. I sat down on a Thursday night and watched every single pitch he threw in that ball game, and it was so impressive that it stuck with me here to this point. He gave up a solo home run in the first inning and never looked back from there. He was dominant. He faced Florida in the SEC tournament. Yes, that Florida team that LSU played in the national championship. Through 5 2/3 innings, only gave up 2 runs, struck out 5. That's really, really solid against a team that played for a national championship. Again, all later in the year when he's coming into that role now as Alabama's guy. He already proved he could do it with the mentality, the mindset, take anything that's thrown at you, and now he's producing on the mound, which is very, very encouraging. Alabama did end up losing that baseball game, but he pitched very well. He got to face Wake Forest. Yeah, that Wake Forest team. And while the run total is a little higher than maybe you want, he gave up 4 earned. He struck out 8 in 5 2/3 against a team that was widely viewed as one of the best in college baseball. Hell, they were the number 1 national seed in the country. He was able to K 9 of them. So he faced really strong competition last year and pitched very, very well, especially down the stretch. Luke Holman's going to be a massive piece for LSU this year, and he'll either slot in at Saturday or Sunday, but he's going to be in LSU starting rotation big right-handed frame, 6'4", 201. He's going to wear number 38. You'll see him out there, man, on the weekend. He's going to be a very good one. And the staff is so high on him. I mean, the staff believes that Luke Holman can be a number one a first-round draft pick. A first-rounder. That's how they view him. So you're getting that guy to come in and not be your Friday night guy, but be your number 2 or maybe even number 3 potentially on this team. That's how deep that they are. So Luke Holman is somebody to be very, very excited about, and I'm sure you can tell that I am. So, and I think you all will be as well if you haven't seen him when you ultimately do. I will be, like I said, I'll be frank. I have actually missed all of his scrimmage starts. I've actually not got to see him at LSU, but saw him in that game against Vanderbilt in Florida, and that stuck with me so much to this day that I can recall moments in the ball game, like a solo inning in the first inning, a solo home run in the first inning. Moving along with pitchers, let's talk about Gage Jump, because Gage Jump could end up being the biggest prize for LSU out of this portal haul. Comes to you from UCLA. He's coming off of Tommy John, did not pitch at all in 2023. He spoke to the media at Media Day and updated his health. Wrong cut.
My arm after Tommy John, I'm feeling really good. I think it's been 17, 18 months, and usually 18 to 21 is kind of when you're full go. There's no issues, so I'm feeling really good.
So there you go. He just told you, full go. LSU's brought him along pretty slowly through the process. This stuff could really honestly be argued as the best on the staff. It's that good. Here, I'll let Gage Jump tell you himself about his pitching style.
I'm a 4-pitch guy, fastball, curveball, slider, changeup. I'd like to say I'm very aggressive, and with Coach Yeski, the idea of suffocating the zone and playing to our strengths is basically putting pressure on the hitter. I'm just really happy to be pitching with the talent that we have on this team, and I'm really excited for season.
So he totally heard him there. 4-pitch guy, fastball, changeup, slider, curveball. Fastball's power. I mean, it's going to be mid to touching upper 90s from the left side. Slider's big, classic sweeper from a lefty across the zone. That slider that just runs away from the left-handed barrel. We've talked about the injury there a little bit. He only made 7 appearances, a true freshman in 2022 at UCLA, including 3 starts. But the numbers are really good, man. A 3.86 ERA, a 172 opponent batting average against, and he has been awesome so far at LSU in these scrimmages. He led LSU's team in opponent batting average against in the fall. It was 0.55, I think LSU hit off of Gage Jump in the fall, that's incredible. Here, I'll check real fast and get the actual, the official number for you momentarily. 0.53. I shorted him a few points. 0.53. He led LSU in whip in the fall with 0.33. He's just been very, very good. And like I said, the stuff could be argued as the best on the staff, and you've got a lot of good stuff on this LSU staff, so you won't be able to miss him. He's going to be out there. I think he figures into the weekend rotation. He might even start the opening game. We'll see, but it definitely wouldn't surprise me if he pushes for that Friday night role at some point this season, and it wouldn't be of any fault of anybody else in the LSU rotation. This stuff just could it's going to potentially stand out that much. Now, again, we'll see when he gets back on a mound, game situation. Does it take him a little while maybe to find himself, kind of like it did with Thatcher Hurd last year potentially? Sure, it could, but it could also all come together really, really fast for him. He seems like a very special player. That's number 23, Gage Jump. So you'll definitely see him out there as well. Let's move to the relievers. We have 3 more pitchers to go through here. Justin Lohr. Justin Lohr comes to LSU from Xavier. A very good Xavier team last year, and actually a Xavier team that LSU will play this season. So he'll see his former team. Big left-handed pitcher, 6'5", 214, 2 seasons at Xavier, second team All Big East honors last year, 29 appearances, 1 start. He started the year in the Xavier rotation, made 1 start against Oregon early in the season, pitched 4 innings, only gave up 2 earned, but it was a hard luck loser in that ball game. But again, pitched pretty well for him. Again, 3 or more pitches, fastballs, low 90s, 91, 93. that range. A awesome slider as well, kind of like we were talking about with jump, just that classic one that's going to sweep across the zone, coming out of the left-handed arm slot. He's kind of more of a three-quarters guy as well, so it's a little bit of a funky delivery. But even at Xavier in the Big East, faced some really, really good competition, especially in the pre-conference. We mentioned Oregon. Oregon was a super regional team last year. Hello, how you doing? And he, only gave up 2 earned in 4 innings. That's opening week, so they weren't extending him as much. He got to face Louisville on the season as well. We know what that program is. How about West Virginia? West Virginia was a tournament team last year. He faced them twice, 3 1/3 total over 2 outings with 3 strikeouts and only 1 run given up. Very, very good. But the big one for him was against Vanderbilt in the Nashville Regional in an elimination game. And he came out, pitched the 8th inning. They had about a 4-hour rain delay, and they brought him back out for the 9th. And he still carved and shoved. 2 shutout innings, 3 strikeouts to eliminate Vanderbilt, the number 6 overall national seed, Vanderbilt from last year's NCAA tournament. That is a moment from a guy like Justin Lohr, who can come in and immediately take hold of the back end of LSU's bullpen, which sounds strange to say because you still have Gavin Guidry. But again, shows you how deep this staff is. And I love. You've probably heard me say it already once before. You're going to hear me say it a lot more. I love the options that LSU has at the back end of that bullpen with a guy like Justin Lohr, with a guy like Gavin Guidry as well. But for Lohr, a 6-2 record, 7 saves last year. So we factored into the winning side of 13 different decisions, a 1.89 ERA, and the opponent hit just 182 off of him. And we went through who some of those opponents were. So expect big things from a guy like Justin Lohr, man. Again, he's going to figure into the back end of that LSU bullpen immediately and should perform at a high level. The stuff's plenty good enough, and the pedigree is pretty darn good enough too. So that's Justin Lohr. Again, second team All Big East last year, helped Xavier to a Big East Conference tournament title and a regional final in Nashville, where they were eliminated by the aforementioned Oregon, but he did not face them in that regional. That concludes the left-handed pitching portion of the transfer class here. Let's get back to the righties. There's a couple more that I want to touch on. Fidel Ulloa, who we talked about yesterday on the show because he showed out in the scrimmage. Big 6'2", 205 righty from junior college, San Joaquin Delta College out in California. Power arm, 95, 96, pretty nice slider. Took him a little bit to get control of it early on in his outing on Sunday in that scrimmage, but once he did, it became a really, really nice pitch. And what caught my eye with him is the situation that they put him in. We talked about this yesterday. He came in a mid-inning pitching change, had a runner at second base with 1 out, and Tommy White and Hayden Travinski and Jared Jones all in a row due up, and he struck out Tommy White, who we all think is going to be one of the best hitters in college baseball this year. It stands to reason. And really showed well in that spot. That's huge. You talk about somebody, you're looking for different options out of that bullpen. You have so many, but you're looking at who can slot into roles. To see him come into a spot like that and succeed is massive. So comes to LSU, 2 seasons at San Joaquin Delta College in Stockton, California. Last season, 14 games, 10 starts, had a 5-1 record, an ERA just north of 4. But again, to show you the power stuff, 55 innings, 75 strikeouts. So not going to probably figure in as a starter at LSU. Maybe he could be a midweek guy, but certainly looks more like a bullpen arm, potentially somebody have a tough spot, come in because he threw strikes. That was the other massive thing. He came in out of the bullpen and just pounded the zone. So liked what I saw a lot from Fidel Ulloa. So that's definitely a name to keep an eye on, I think, because I think they want him to have a big role, throwing him into that spot and seeing what he could do. Number 40, Fidel Ulloa, again, junior college transfer. The last guy we have to touch on is Cade Woods, another Alabama transfer, and this is an interesting one as well. So he's originally out of Louisiana, another sizable kid up from the right side, from Monroe originally, went to Ouachita, 2 seasons at Alabama, but he did not pitch in 2022 due to injury, and that's impressive and important because of what I'm about to tell you. last year, while you look at the ERA and you see 5.52, that's not going to blow you away. But he led Alabama's team in appearances out of the bullpen. Coming off of injury, coming off a year where he did not pitch. They relied on him that much to lead their team in appearances coming out of the bullpen. So an experienced guy, even though he missed, all of 2022 with injury. Seen him pitch a couple of times in these scrimmages. We talked about it a little bit yesterday. If you want the full breakdown of what he did, you can go listen to yesterday's podcast again. And he was effectively wild in that scrimmage, but effective to the tune of 2 shutout innings, which is very good and could fill multiple roles out of the bullpen for you as well. Potentially some middle relief, some longer relief. Alabama used him kind of for all of that. So that's that. Let's see if I have it right here. Hold on. I can tell you. Look, 2 innings, 2 innings, 2 2/3, 3 innings, 3 innings, 2 2/3, 2 innings, 2 innings, 3 innings, and then 2/3 of an inning, third of an inning, 1 inning. There's multiple ways you can use him, and LSU will. They'll figure out the best role for him, but the stuff's plenty good too. It's a nice little slider, fastball, low to mid 90s, mainly really going to be about 92 to 94. But I've been fairly impressed with what I've seen from him. I'd like him to be as effective as he was Sunday, but maybe not as wild as he was on Sunday as well. So there's the potential there for something special, I think, with Cade Woods. It might not be as dominant though as some of the other guys that we've talked about with the potential for Justin Lohr, Luke Holman, or guys like that. So, but definitely like the possibility there. Those are your transfers into LSU, and what you saw, or what we established here in the last 30 minutes or so on this episode, is that the majority of those 7 are going to contribute immediately for LSU, both position players, and definitely Holman and Gage Jump and Justin Lohr. So you've got guys that are coming in. You need to know the names. You need to know the faces. And I hope this helped get you that. So maybe not the quantity that you got, maybe not the same approach, but you got a lot of talent. You got a lot of talent in that transfer class. We said right off the top, D1 baseball ranked the number 2 transfer class in the country. So plenty of talent on LSU out of the portal again this year, and they'll factor in major as the Tigers try to make another run to Omaha and national title. Number 8. Got to get used to saying that. Don't think it'll be too hard, but we got to get used to saying that. Make a run at national title, number 8. That's going to wrap it up here for today. Again, tomorrow we will take your questions and answer your questions throughout the entire. That'll just be the whole show. I'll just scroll through the comments on Twitter. You want to drop some on this YouTube video? Do that. We'll scroll through there. We'll answer anything and everything that you have on tomorrow's show. Subscribe up to the YouTube channel. Search Musso with the Box. Hit the subscribe button, hit the bell, you'll get notified. It's greatly appreciated. Share the channel, share the videos. All of that helps build the channel, which is ultimately what we're trying to do here. Fired up to be back talking baseball with y'all again this year. Like and subscribe to the podcast audio-wise as well. Apple, Spotify, Google, wherever you get your podcasts. Follow me on Twitter at Musso Matthew. All of that greatly appreciated. And be here tomorrow. We're answering your questions on Musso at the Box.